So that was our trip. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just kidding. Let's start right from the beginning. After last year, when we went to the north, to Norway, this year we wanted to go somewhere south. I have been planning Italy for a long time, because I haven't been in it yet, and I was quite tempted to see it. And when holiday, then properly. That means driving all the way from north to south, to Sicily and back. We set off on the trip the last weekend in April, because we are going south and we assumed that the temperatures there would already be quite high in the spring. The original plan was to reach Italy via Austria and the Alps, but after checking the forecast, we changed our minds. The forecast for Alps said snow and temperatures around -10 degrees. So we chose to go around the Alps through Hungary and Slovenia. We spent the first night in Palava, in the region of wine and wine cellars. Unfortunately, everywhere they only wanted cash, and we ended up having a beer in a pub, where when we arrived, something was burning in their garden. So we drank beer and the staff was hurry with fire extinguishers and buckets of water to put out the fire. The next day was sunny and we were going through Slovakia, Austria and its windmill fields, Hungary to Slovenia. There we have found a nice campsite right next to the vineyard. Michael had a new mattress, which, as he found out, was difficult to push into the tent when it was already inflated. So he had to release the air and inflate it again directly in the tent. Apart from the local ducks, we had the entire campsite to ourselves. The campsite was nice, cheap, and the shower was already included in the price. When paying for the campsite, we received a bottle of local wine from the owner as a gift. Today the destination was already planned directly in Italy. The road led through the capital of Slovenia, the foothills of the Alps, and then just the plain in the north of Italy. This section reminded me of last year's Norway, when we also drove through the snow. But there wasn't so much snow here. Border to Italy. The journey to accommodation was more time-consuming. It was Sunday, and everyone was returning home from the area. Fortunately, we were driving in the opposite direction, so we actually passed the main traffic. We had already bought this accommodation in advance, because tomorrow we want to visit Venice, and we will spend 2 nights here. In addition, it was for a good price and it was not far from the sea and the boat to Venice. While the boys were shopping, I went to see the beach. I thought I would go for a swim, But it wasn't very warm and the sea here was very shallow and I didn't feel like going there to get wet. At least I took the first few drone shots. Journey to Venice. We had bought the tickets for the boat in advance, just like we had prepaid entry to Venice. Since this year, they have started collecting entrance fees to at least regulate the influx of tourists. We took the boat to the center of Venice near St. Mark's Square. And I have to confess to you, Venice disappointed me a little. The shots are nice, yes, there was a lot to see, but as excited as I was beforehand, I actually found out that I didn't enjoy it that much. But my brother was on vacation in Venice about a month after me and he liked it. So it's really just a subjective feeling. Apparently there is a music school in this building because the sound of a piano was coming from the windows. On the other hand, I enjoyed observing the local life. A completely different reality when you have everything on the water. What cars, vans, and buses drive at home, it's the same here, except that everything is on the water and instead of cars, everything is handled by ships. Probably the most famous place in Venice. The Rialto Bridge and the view of the canal and local shipping from it. A bridge with 3 staircases, 2 on the sides, 1 in the middle and shops between them. After returning back, we wanted to go to the store, but Italians everywhere have a siesta from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. It wasn't worth waiting there for 2 hours, so we went back to the accommodation. It was quite far and it was really hot. But we went along the beach, so the heat wasn't so bad. The next day was a boring trip along the eastern side of Italy, where there was nothing interesting to see. We wanted to stay in a campsite by the sea, but again we arrived at siesta time. And so, instead of waiting for the reception to open, we decided to continue on, and we drove to San Marino, which we had planned for the next day. San Marino is actually a mini-state lying like one city on a hill. There is a nice view of the wide surroundings from here. The exit from the city and the traffic in front of it were controlled by local policemen. They didn't like me filming them. Fortunately, they didn't stop me in any way, and it was enough when I turned off my camera. After San Marino, we drove further inland and found a campsite in the mountains. Campsite at an altitude of 800 meters below the mountain with a peak at 1,400 meters above sea level. We were afraid that it would be cold here, but it wasn't. The campsite was not expensive, but the shower was on chips. We got one as part of the price, and you have to buy another if you wanted to. According to the weather forecast for tomorrow, it is supposed to rain. We wake up early, because we were afraid that we will pack the tents in the rain. Fortunately, it was dry in the morning. However, half of the way we drove through places just after rain. Even so, the rain caught up with us. The second half of the day we drove in the rain, and the closer we get to Rome, the more it rains. It doesn't stop raining until just before Rome, and we drove the last 10 kilometers in the dry. We were wet, but at least we can see through the foggy helmets to the road again. In Rome, we have also booked the campsite in advance, because we will spend 2 nights here as well. The campsite is interestingly made of small, but fully sufficient containers. For a campsite 6 kilometers from the center, it is not particularly expensive and is nicely furnished. We went to buy the necessary food, and the weather kept alternating between rain, sun, and wind. These 3 states randomly until the evening. Unfortunately, according to the forecast, it looks like rain tomorrow as well, when we have to walk through the city. In the morning, when we ride the bus, it doesn't rain, but as soon as we get off the bus, it starts to rain. There are crowds of people waiting in endless lines at the Vatican. They are crazy. They must spend the whole day in that queue. The rain is starting to turn into a downpour in Vatican Square. So we hide in a shop where we buy some souvenirs, and in the breaks of the rain we move on to the sights of Rome. I hereby thank the local embassies for allowing us to wait in their entrances until the rain stopped. The downpour finally stops and we can move on. The fountain was fenced off because they were just pulling out the coins of wishes. This building attracted me from afar. A monumental building. And the closer we got to it, the more I was amazed how huge and unbelievably gigantic everything was. From the terrace of this monument one could see all of ancient Rome, its excavations and the Colosseum. Rome impressed me much more than Venice. I got what I expected and maybe even more. Everything was just huge and nice. And in addition, all the monuments are somehow in one place. You don't really have to go through that much to get through everything important. Don't you think there's something strange about this bridge? No? So look at the traffic. On how cars drive. Left. Such a little England in the middle of Rome. one last view of the whole city. Today we drive along the west coast towards Naples and Pompeii. For the first time, not counting Venice, we see the sea. It's cloudy and windy on the way. We booked the campsite a day in advance from Rome. We have a small room with no windows, and what's more, it's right next to the railway line, where the train is always running and everything shakes like crazy. But we have a place to sleep, and the campsite is right at the entrance to Pompeii. Unfortunately, it starts to rain again. Pompeii. The fact that it's raining doesn't matter, but I'm rather disappointed by what I see. I expected more. But that changes after a while, because I find that Pompeii captivated me and that the further I go, the bigger and more magnificent the houses become. Initial disappointment turns into enthusiasm and wonder about this city. How big it was, what kind of houses were there, and just in general, Pompeii fascinated me. It stops raining and small bare walls starts to change to larger and more well-preserved palaces with courtyards and paintings. Even some of the gardens in the houses are nicely renovated. Pompeii is so big that I put a paper map in my pocket, and for navigation in the city I use the maps on my phone. A tour of the whole city takes a lot of time and there is really a lot to see. I recommend everyone to visit Pompeii. the amphitheater where Pink Floyd played several concerts. They have a permanent exhibition for these concerts in the basement of the amphitheater corridors. In the distance, Vesuvius begins to peek out from the clouds. The fatal volcano for this city. Sunset over Naples. We wanted to go to Vesuvius the next morning, but after reading the information on the internet, we gave up. There is a fee to enter Vesuvius. You have to have a reservation for a certain time, and if the weather is bad, you will lose everything, because you cannot go up in bad weather. And besides, it was already sold out anyway. In the morning, the weather on Vesuvius was nice. One last look at Pompeii, and then we go beyond these hills to the way to the Amalfi Coast. After crossing the hills, it starts to get hot. We experience the Italian weather for the first time and dress in light, thin clothes. Beautiful blue sea and wonderful views from the hilltops. Then only winding descents down to the water to Amalfi itself. Then the journey along the coast, which is sometimes right next to the water, and sometimes you have to go up very high. On the way we met two detours. The first was passable on a motorbike, but the second was not. The second was a landslide across the road, so we had to go over higher hills and land. Tonight we are camping by the sea, but unfortunately it is after the rain. It was quite windy and the sea is very rough. It's not for swimming again, but at least I got some nice shots. We continue further south. Today we are visiting the Tropea city and then Sicily itself. Down in the south, we had to go through several tunnels in which it was quite cold, but then the last turn and a view of Sicily. Arranging the ferry was quite an experience. We arrived at the place where the ship departs from, but no ticket sales anywhere. Fortunately, there was an Italian biker in front of us, and he was also looking for tickets, so we chased him to the tickets shop. Without the Italian biker, we certainly wouldn't have found it. After disembarking, we had to drive through crazy traffic in the city of Messina. In addition, the campsite we saw on map was not a campsite. The second campsite didn't exist either, so we drove to the third, hoping that it was functional and open. Luckily it was, and we were able to set up camp, because it was really late and there was no time to look for anything else. The campsite was more expensive, half of the toilets were not functional, there was no board, and so on. Catastrophe. But we couldn't choose much, and we took whatever was available. And here for the first time I got to the sea, where I could swim. The beach was in a bay, rocky, full of seaweed, but the sea was warm and calm. So I had to travel all the way to the south of Italy to get into the sea for the first time. Today we are going to climb the mountains to Etna. From the beginning, however, we see signs that the road is closed after 20 kilometers, but we still move on. Unfortunately, they were right. At this view of Mount Etna, the road is closed due to a landslide. So we have to go back to the coast and find another way through the mountains. So that we don't have to go all the way to the sea, we meander down the local small roads, which are more like dirt roads. But the views from them are great. Finally, we arrive at the foot of Etna. Unfortunately, we have a delay of a few hours, and the plans for the next days are completely ruined. Another trip around Sicily is lost in time, and we decide to skip one day in Sicily. The day we had to go all the way to the south and then to Palermo. At the same time, the whole plan for the return trip falls apart, and all the following days we always improvise in the evening, where we will go the next day. We are camping on the east coast of Sicily. This is the most expensive campsite for the entire trip, and even the hot water in the showers was paid for in a vending machine. The gentleman at the camp didn't speak a word of English, but we somehow managed to understand each other. The wind is blowing again, but the sea is fine for swimming. So I'm going in the water for the second time. Way to Messina for the ferry. We can see across the sea that it is not very nice weather in Italy, and some drops will fall here as well. But in the end we only got wet for a few kilometers, nothing that we would need raincoats for. The campsite is by the sea. The waves are bigger due to the weather, but again nothing that would deter me from getting into it. We had rabbits running around the campsite freely, and the owner gave us some of his own oranges, which were delicious. Again, the camp was not expensive, but the showers were for money and the toilets lacked a board. Today is improvisation, and we are going from the east coast to the west coast. On the way we pass several villages located right on top of the hill. And we are again at the campsite, and again the weather is not good for swimming. Cold, big waves. But at least we sleep in a nice place by the delta of the river into the sea. In this camp I met a Swiss, a retired motorcyclist who is now traveling through Europe in a caravan. He recommended us to visit the city of Siena. In the distance is the Amalfi Coast, but this time we're driving from it to the opposite side of Italy. We're going from the west coast to the east coast. The sky is overcast, and we drive again through the inland mountains. Fortunately, it's not raining, and the closer we get to the coast, the nicer it gets. It's already completely without clouds at the coast. We spend the night in an expensive campsite with a paid shower. But we are right next to the beach, and for the first time I get what I expected from Italy all along. Long sandy beaches, blue water, heat. As it should be. After 2 weeks on the road, I finally got what I came here for. I had a great time here. In addition, beaches and water absolutely free of tourists, and just for us. In a few weeks there will be crowds and head-to-head. It's a good thing that it worked out that way for us, because this is the last day we spend by the sea. The following days are already planned as driving inland. And we go to the opposite coast again. We are going to the recommended Siena. There we stay in a campsite, which is what a campsite should be. Everything is clean, functional, nothing is missing anywhere, and the price is also very low. I would set the camp in Siena as a model for all other camps. We go to the center of Siena under the train station, which opens into the shopping center, and from there escalators lead to the top of the city. The historic center of the city begins there. Siena, a city that I personally rank before Rome. It is a city that I recommend everyone to visit. For me, it is the greatest experience in all of Italy. Every house in Siena is unique. Each is decorated differently and each is beautiful. You could easily make a video just about the houses in Siena. Everywhere you look there is something nice to see. Simply stunning. The beating of drums and the ringing of bells followed us all over the city. The bells rang every half hour, and the drumming was heard everywhere, but we saw nothing anywhere. As if it was hiding from us. Note the columns in the tower windows. The higher the floor, the more columns. And yet we found the source of the drumming. I thought the whole time that it was several drummers at the same time, but it was only one person. And we are already elsewhere. Pisa, the Leaning Tower, and thousands of people who want to support it.
I looked over and he's like,
allora Matteo fermo, andiamo più avanti.
Today we drive over the last mountains, and the destination is a campsite somewhere on a plain in the north of Italy. On the way we meet an ancient photogenic bridge. of the last climbs and a few breathtaking views of the hilly part of Italy. And this is really the last climb, because from the next intersection it's all downhill to Medina. In Medina, we first went to the Caravan Club, where they were full. It seemed to me more that they don't want bikers there. And so we found accommodation in an agro-camping, on a farm. Own pond, where there was not enough water, non-functioning shower, but it was still nice there. Peace, warmth and comfort. It was a beautiful sunset. The landscape here in the north is one big flat. Nothing around but only flat fields. Those mountains in the distance are the ones we came from. A very interesting day. After an hour and a half of the road, I realized that I had forgotten the charger and batteries for the camera at the campsite. So the guys drove on and I had to go back. Then, in order to reach the boys by the evening, I drove on the highways. Italian highways are incredibly expensive, so I spent about €32 on the highways for this day. But I found the charger and the batteries and arrived at the agreed campsite only 20 minutes late. We chose the campsite as close as possible to the Alps, because we had planned to drive through them, so that we wouldn't have to spend the night in the Alps. The campsite was really at the foot of the Alps, literally below the first hill. did well that we decided to cross the Alps. It was disgusting, foggy, cold and rainy. We got wet 5 times and dried 5 times on the way. The last rain was heavy and soaked us quite a bit. We dried up somewhere near Vienna. And as it happens, the penultimate day always merges with the last, so when we are already near Vienna and Palava, we take it straight home. After all, it's only a short distance away. But it's a classic on motorcycle trips that the last 2 days are always crushed into one long day. And how would I manage to travel to Italy? I was quite disappointed. For how much we had traveled, we had seen and experienced little. At least that's what I said when we got back. But now I changed my mind when editing this video, and I say that it was actually nice, that we actually saw and experienced a lot. The campsites in the north were fine, but the further south, the worse the level. Dirt, missing or non-functioning equipment, and level at all. The traffic in all of Italy is crazy, everyone drives like crazy and the rules of the road are only a kind of recommendation. It seems like nobody here really even knows them. But I'm not even surprised at all. Everywhere they have a senseless speed limit, and as a result the whole of Italy is one big 70. A straight 10-kilometer road and they simply have a limit of 70, sometimes 50, and in many places even 30 or even 10. 90 is just exceptional. From the beginning, I wanted to follow the signs and rules, but it's just not possible. We'll see in time if we get any greetings from the local police. No more simply going to Italy by bus, car or motorbike. If so, at most by airplane and straight to a nice beach, or to Siena, Rome or Pompeii. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as we did the whole way through. If you are interested, please click like and subscribe channel and I look forward to seeing you next year with another travel. Bye.
That's it.